Hello everyone. So now we're going to start using Docker. So in this particular video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo using images. So we're not going to create any, we're just going to use them. So I'm assuming that you have Docker already installed, and what you're seeing is running on Ubuntu 20.04, and I used Docker.io to install. I didn't use the Docker repos, I just used Docker.io to install Docker on here. So let's have a go. So here's my system. Let's look at the version. So that's the version that I have running. And let's look at the daemon. And here you see, here's the Docker daemon that's running. So I'm going to be talking with the Docker daemon using the Docker commands. So when you install Docker, the first thing they tell you to do to make sure it's working is to run Docker. So the Docker command is the main manipulator, and it has a bunch of subcommands. So I'm going to run hello world. So what's happening here, so that worked, and it ran it. So as we can see what's happening here, this is the command that I entered. And what Docker does, or the Docker daemon does, we're talking to the Docker daemon, so it looks to see if it already has the image. And if it doesn't, what it does is it will try to find it in the in Docker Hub. And then it will pull it from Docker Hub. So that's what this is. And here's the pull complete. And then it gives me a digest, and it says that it downloaded a newer image because that's the new image. So the daemon pulled everything down and then ran it. And what you're seeing here is the output from running the command, and there's some blurb. So now we know that Docker is working. So that's the first thing that we do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run Alpine. So Alpine is a very lightweight Linux type image that will that it kind of gets out of its own way and allows your application to run. So you don't have to deal too much with administering it. It's going to allow your application to run. So let's just run that. Docker run. And again, I could pick a version, but I just want to use Alpine. So this takes a little longer, but it pulled it down and it ran it. So it didn't do anything, but what I want to do is uname-a. So this is a bit like when you're using SSH. So when you're using SSH, you can either shell into it or load it in this case, or you can have it run a command and end. So let's have a look at this. So I'm going to run on the Alpine image, uname-a. So there we go. This is the output of uname run on this Alpine image. And as we can see here, it's so I also ran uname again. Sorry, I paused it by accident. I ran uname again, and look at this. They look almost the same, almost entirely the same. Well, they are, because what happens with your Docker image is that it uses the kernel of the underlying system. So it's actually using the kernel of the Ubuntu system that I'm running on. So that's why we're seeing it's the same version information, Ubuntu, and then all of the dates are the same. But notice the name is different. So here we have 9E, some weird long number, and here we have my host name. So this is my actual host name on Ubuntu, as you can see. So what happened there? Well, the image has a different name. So if I were to do this, run hostname, there I'm running hostname on the system. It's not the same. Okay, let me show you. So here are all the images that I've downloaded. So first I downloaded Hello World, and before I downloaded Alpine. So this is a bit like downloading software to your system. And then once it's downloaded, you can use it again and again. So you notice the first time I ran Alpine, it couldn't find it. It pulled from the Docker Hub, the pull complete, I get an SHA 256 digest, and then when I run it again, it doesn't have to download it again. And again, when I run it again, it doesn't have to download it again because it's already an image, so it's already on my system. So we have images, and we also have containers. So an image is like a VM image. It's essentially a digital version of the application that we want to run. So in this case, the image is inert until I actually run it, and then that becomes a container. So when it's running, it's a container, and it's just an image when it's sitting on the system. But as you can see here, I have a bunch of container IDs. Notice here, 9EB, that was the one where I ran the uname. Of course, the second time I run the uname, it's launching a new system. So I've run it 3 times, and I now have 3 containers. So they're all finished. Notice they all say exited, but every time I run it, I run a new container, but I'm using the same image. Now I can get rid of these or run them again, and I can also have them running. So we're going to look at that in a little while. In any case, so here when I ran hostname with uname A, that was the name that was used in the uname. And then when I ran it again with hostname, that was this one. So I'm running a new image each time when I do this. We don't have to do this. I'm just going to continue this way so that we don't. So let's have a look again. Let's have a look at release information. So this again is on the Alpine box, and here we can see that the name is Alpine Linux. This is the version ID. Pretty name that's just formatted, and then where the information about the operating system. So this is using Alpine and Hello World. So now that I'm running it 4 times, I should see more. When I use Docker PS, it should show me more containers that were run in the past. So here we go. There's the last one that I ran. So again, as I said, you don't have to create a new container every time, but the way I'm running it, we're creating a new container. Excuse me. So, but I still only have those 2 images. Every time I run Alpine, or even if I wanted to run Hello World, it would create an instance, a running container, using that image. So that's what's happening there. Docker PS, if we use the -A, it shows us all of them. If we use it without any options, it only shows us the ones that are running. So let's have a look at another type of image. What we're going to do is we're going to do some port forwarding. So there's a getting started image. Oops, sorry, I keep hitting the wrong key. So what I'm going to do here, so this says put it in the background, the D, and I'm going to port forward. So what this says is it says take port 80 on the kernel, on the container, and forward it to port 8123 on the host I'm running on. So it's downloading this image. This image is quite a bit bigger. We have a whole bunch of layers to this image, and now it's running. So if I run Docker PS, there's my running image. So I have the container ID. It was created 10 seconds ago. It's been up for 9 seconds, and notice it's doing some port forwarding. Let's pull this again. So port forwarding, it says 8123 on coming in on anything. We'll go to port 80 on my image, and the image also is given a name. They're all given these weird names to make them unique. So now what I need to do is I need to open that port 8123 on my Ubuntu box. So if I do UFW status, I see that I don't have port 8123, so I'm not going to be able to use it remotely. So what I want to do is I want to allow 8123, and since it's kind of a web server, I happen to know that, I'm going to allow only TCP. So let's see, there's my status. Okay, so now I'm going to load it from a browser. So let's have a look at this. This is my VM's IP address, 8123, and this is what I'm looking at. So here, as you can see, we have the getting started. So what I'm doing is I'm actually talking to the container right now. So when I do this, I'm connected to the container, and it has the command, so in detached mode, so put it in the background, and then I'm mapping the port. So I mapped port 8123 to port 80, and this is the image that I'm using. So actually, as I click around here, this is the image that's running on my system over port 8123. So that looks a little different. Let's have a look again at the status. PS, I'm going to show all of them. So as you can see here, the latest one is been up for 2 minutes, but still up. But these all exited, so there are different types of different ways of using the image. And then I also have I should have a new image there. So yes, I have alpine. I had alpine, and now I have Docker getting started. So the image IDs and the container IDs, we're going to manipulate them a little bit, but I've just given you kind of an overview of using different types of images. So hope it was helpful. I forgot something. So this image is still running, right? This container is still running. I want to stop it. I don't want it to have it running it all the time. So what I'm going to do now, Docker stop. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's take a look at netstat, just to see what it looks like. So here's my 8123, and notice it's being run by Docker proxy. And containerd and dockerd are part of the infrastructure around Docker. But here, so it looks, Docker proxy is what's running there, because it's doing the port forwarding. So I want to, oh, it's not images I want, it's Docker PS. I want to stop it, so I'm going to use that image. There we go. So now I have stopped my image, and if I do Docker PS all, then I can see that they're all exited. So that's good. We're good to go. Thanks.